Director of LCOG and the Central Lane MPO. I'm going to start this meeting off because we currently do not have a chair. So welcome, Paul, and it's recording, correct? All right.
Correct.
So I just want to remind everyone that if anyone is attending in the audience and they would like to sign up for comments, you can let Paul know. And then once we are ready for that part of the agenda, he will promote you to a panelist. So the first item is the election of a chair. Both the current chair and the vice chair are unavailable for this meeting. So the chair position and the vice chair position historically have rotated. So the current or the past chair was the city of Eugene, and the vice chair was the city of Springfield. So if we follow the historical route, the city of Springfield would move into the chair position and Lane County would move into the vice chair position. So having said all of that, per the MPC bylaws, we need a motion for a new chair.
When Springfield wants to raise their hand.
Yeah, I'm going to do it this time around since Councilor Weber is new to MPC. So if somebody could put that in the form of a motion, it would be appreciated.
Great. I'll move approval of Mayor Sean Van Gordon as chair of MPC for this year.
Second.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Wonderful. And with that, Chair Van Gordon, I will turn it over to you for the election of the vice chair.
Thank you. So it sounded like it was the county, and for the county commissioners, I don't know if you guys discussed who wanted to be vice chair this time around.
We have not discussed that yet.
Nope. I'm happy to do it if people want. I've been on this board before, but if David really would like to do it, I'm fine with that too.
I've also chaired this board before, so it's really up to the board. But I would gladly put my name in if that's an option.
So does anybody else have some thoughts here?
Commissioner Buck, just a question, I guess, in the discussion portion. Have you previously chaired MPC?
Can't remember. I was on MPC a while back, and it's been a while, so I can't recall. But I may have. I don't know. But I'm totally open to doing it.
Okay. Thank you. I was thinking about rotating if people have previously served as chair and distributing the responsibilities of preparing for these meetings. So thank you for that clarification.
All right, we're still looking for a motion here. Somebody's going to have to make a decision.
I'll make a motion to nominate or appoint Lane County Commissioner Heather Buck as the vice chair of MPC.
I'll second.
All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, motion passes. So Commissioner Buck will serve as the vice chair. We are going to move on to item 4, which is any adjustments to the agenda or announcement from MPC members. Paul, do we have any adjustments that you need to bring up?
We don't have any adjustments to the agenda. I noted earlier that we do need to hopefully address 8A before we lose quorum, because I understand that Mayor Knudsen has to leave at about 12:15. So that's just a note.
We're going to get cruising right along here to make sure we're done on time. Any other announcements from MPC members?
I'll just mention that I'll likely have to go off screen in about an hour because I'll be traveling, but I'll be on.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Okay.
Chair, Chair, I was going to offer a similar comment, and thank you, Paul, for making that note. I need to depart today from this screen between 12:15 and 12:25 to get to the Coquille Community Funds program. And I will still be able to listen to our meeting, but not likely able to vote and participate while driving. So just wanted to make that note. Thank you for the raising that point, Paul.
All right, Vidal.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to mention, since some folks may or may not be here by the end of the meeting, and that's when I kind of do my updates, I wanted to introduce to everyone Ian Roholtz. He is, I've been asked to tackle on a new assignment up in the Portland area, and so Ian will be kind of rotating in as the interim area manager for Area 5. I will still be here involved with this group plus the Lane Act, but Ian will be the one actually kind of spearheading quite a few of the things that's happening. So I wanted to at least introduce him to the group here before folks start chiming out. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Welcome, Ian.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we are ready for comments from the audience. If you want to address the board, please raise your hand and then they will promote you.
And Mayor, Mr. Zago let me know earlier that he wished to speak, and I just moved him to panelist. So go ahead, Rob.
There. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good morning, Chair Van Gordon, members of MPC. Thank you for this opportunity to comment. I want to talk about the fiscal year 2028, 2020, 30 funding proposals. I recognize there's not a public hearing on this. I just want to make a couple general comments. First of all, this is an important decision that you're going to be making shortly. Obviously, a lot of what the Central Lane MPO does is checking boxes to satisfy federal requirements. Not that that's not important, but it feels like paperwork. This is actual money coming into our community to do good things, and so it's an important decision that you're making, and I'm excited for that. Secondly, I want to applaud your staff. There's not enough money to fulfill all the requests that have been made. Your staff has done a great job trying to balance different needs and look at what the public has said, what your priorities are, and have come forward with a balanced funding proposal. Best supports that. We're seeing a lot of investments in safety. We're seeing a lot of investments to improve our community. And thank you for all of your good work. That's really all I have to say this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. I don't see any other hands, Paul, do you?
I do not, Chair.
Okay, then we are going to go on to the next item, which is to approve the December 4th, 2025 MPC meeting minutes, and I will entertain a motion to do that.
Chair, I move to approve the minutes of 2025 December.
I'll second.
All right. Yeah. If you're in favor, please raise your hand. Motion.
Mayor, I'll abstain
Go ahead.
because I wasn't here.
Yes.
I would also like to abstain because I was not here.
Motion passes with 2 abstentions. Okay, we already elected an MPC chair, so we are on to item 8A, which is the fiscal year 28 through 30 funding proposals.
Chair,
Yes.
there is another part to number 7, which is the appointment of 2 OMPOC members.
We need OMPOC members.
And I can speak to that for a moment if you'd like, since we have a few new people here today. The OMPOC is the Oregon MPO Consortium, formed, I don't know, gosh, 15 years ago or so, and managed by LCOG and staffed by LCOG. It consists of 2 members from each of the 8 Oregon MPO policy boards. And they are typically appointed annually and serve for a year on the OMPOC board. OMPOC meets roughly quarterly. One catch to doing this today is that the first OMPOC meeting of 2026 is tomorrow at 9 a.m. But we need to have 2 of you, 2 of the MPC members, appointed to serve as this MPO's representative on OMPOC for this year.
I have done it before. It is worthwhile if you have the time to do it. I do not have the time to do it, but if you're wanting to learn about regional and statewide transportation, it is a worthwhile exercise. Is there anybody who would like to do this?
Chair, I've been doing it for the last year, and I would reflect your sentiment about that it is pretty useful in understanding what's going on around the state as far as transportation projects.
Do you have a desire to keep doing it?
Sure, I've got the bandwidth for that.
Okay, so we probably need one more person.
Chair, I would also be willing to do that if nobody else has interest.
Paul, can we do this by consensus or do we need a motion?
It is up to you, Chair, and I'm fine with consensus.
Okay. I'm seeing some head nods that people are fine here. Okay, so Paul, could you submit Pete Knox and Michelle Weber to OMPOC for our representatives?
I will make sure that happens very shortly today so that they have all the information for tomorrow's meeting.
Excellent.
I can send Michelle the agenda right now so that she can get it.
And Councilor Weber, as I said, LCOG staff's OMPOC. Megan Scholl at LCOG is the staff person who you will see emails from. She leads our staffing for OMPOC.
Okay, now we are on to 8A, which is the fiscal year 28 through 30 funding proposals, and I will turn it over to Dan.
Yes, thank you. My name is Daniel Collister. I'm Senior Planner at Lane Council of Governments. I'm presenting today the funding package that is recommended for MPC's approval. So this is an important part of the development of Central Lane MPO's Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program, or our TIP. That program is being developed now for federal fiscal years 2027 to 2030, and I'll be bringing that to this group in April. Among other things, the TIP shows how federal funding is being used for transportation projects and for transportation programs in the MPO over those 4 years to implement the goals and objectives of our regional transportation plan. And that includes, of course, the federal funding that is programmed for projects selected at the MPO's discretion. And we have estimated those discretionary funds anticipated over the coming TIP cycle to be roughly $25 million. Our process for soliciting proposals for the use of those funds began several months ago in the Technical Advisory Subcommittee and eventually led to a call for projects, several excellent project proposals, a public hearing at December MPC. There was public outreach, getting the word out through our distribution lists, through social media, local agency newsletters, and a series of committee reviews and deliberations, which ultimately has resulted in the funding package included in the meeting materials today as attachment to Exhibit A. If you're looking at the full PDF packet, it is page 12, but I'm going to share it here now if I can. Okay, are people seeing that? Great. So the Transportation Planning Committee at their January meeting recommended this funding package for MPC approval. Let me just describe briefly what you're seeing with that recommendation. So the proposed projects are listed, and there are two funding columns for each of those. The first showing the amount that's requested, the second column showing the amount that TPC recommends. There's a couple things I want to point out here just for clarification purposes. Eugene's Oakway Road protected bike lanes project shows not applicable in the recommend column. That's because the city reached out to ODOT, and ODOT stepped in and agreed to provide funding to fill the funding gap on that project. Also, the city of Eugene's Get There New Movers request is not included in the top section. That's the competitive proposals section. That's how it was originally submitted, but TPC is recommending that it be included as part of the ongoing non-competitively funded regional programs, this bottom section here. And you can see it there in that group below the regional TO box here. Where funding is also recommended for a Springfield New Movers program and transportation options broken out for Eugene, Springfield, and Coburg. You'll notice, besides the few projects not recommended for funding at this time, almost all of the competitive proposals are recommended at a reduced amount. That reflects careful deliberation, compromise, cooperation among the applicant agencies and the technical advisory subcommittee to try to fund as many of these good projects as we could. Of course, there are considerations guiding that process that result in these recommendations. First and foremost, it's a question of how well these projects support the objectives of the Regional Transportation Plan. MPC, at the beginning of this process, identified 8 objectives that would serve as primary considerations when making funding decisions. A consideration is also given, of course, to the public input that we received through our public process. The meeting materials include the comments that were submitted, and those were provided at December's public hearing. Other considerations, though, include the conformity to air quality requirements, availability of these funds, conflicting with project timelines. Some of these funding programs have pretty specific eligibility requirements that can only be used on certain types of projects. We have to make sure that our funding package includes projects that can utilize all of those funds. We also have about $900,000 of FY25 redistribution funding that's part of this call for projects. And those funds need to obligate this year. There are not many requests that could accommodate that quick of a turnaround for obligating. And let me take just a quick second to describe what redistribution funds are, because there's more to say on that. At the end of each federal fiscal year, the MPO receives a share of federal funding provided to ODOT that has been, you might say, collected from states that were not able to obligate their full allocation that year. And those funds are redistributed to the states that did. And ODOT has a long track record of fully obligating their allocation each year, so we can count on something coming our way at the end of each fiscal year. Those amounts have fluctuated. They've been as low as $500,000 in the last decade and as much as $2 million. But about $900,000 a year is a pretty good average. So I mention that because redistribution amounts for future years are part of this funding recommendation. The MPO was free to program any reasonably anticipated discretionary funding as it sees fit, including redistribution funding as far out as we dare. And by including a portion of anticipated redistribution funding in the conversation over this tip cycle, it helped with the timing of some of these projects. It allowed for ultimately a funding package that was more palatable and one that each of the MPO partner agencies' staff were agreeable to. So having said that, I'm going to go ahead and close my mouth a little bit. I'm happy to take questions about the recommendation or the process itself. Otherwise, we're requesting approval of Resolution 2026-01 to program the funding as described.
All right, thank you, Dan. Does anybody have any questions? I do not see any hands up.
I have a comment.
Sure, go ahead.
These are I just want to thank staff and for all the work and the committees that sorted through all this. These projects are going to be funding. It's like 1.6 million total. If I got that number right. Doesn't matter. But it'll go a long ways to improving the intelligent transportation and transit for our region, and I am fully supporting of it.
Great, thank you. Okay, if there's no questions, can somebody make a motion? And there is one in the packet. So we're looking for a motion to adopt 2026-01.
To approve, that's right.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any other discussion about the motion? All right, all in favor, raise your hand. The motion passes. Well, I see everybody's hand go up. Is there anybody opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. We are on to ODOT Capital Investment Plan. Thanks, Dan.
Chair, on the capital investment plan, I was informed by the ODOT presenter that she would be able to join us at noon, and we're not quite at noon, so I let her know if we were running ahead, we could move quickly on to 8C.
Let's do that then. Then we are going to 8C, which is the MPO Regional Transportation Follow-up.
And hello, this is Kelly Clark. I'm a principal transportation planner, and I'll be here for this agenda item. And I'll be joined by Rachel Dorfman and Josh Kaczynski. And we just wanted to give a quick update for our regional transportation planning work. And actually, I'm going to pass it off to Rachel to start us off.
Thank you, Kelly. Hi, everyone. Rachel Dorfman, a senior planner with Central Lane MPO. As a reminder, MPC adopted the RTP, the Air Quality Conformity Determination, and the Congestion Management Process at your December 2025 meeting. Just wanted to share a quick update that our federal reviewers at the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration, and Environmental Protection Agency have now acknowledged that the RTP's Air Quality Conformity Determination does conform to all applicable air quality requirements. And this acknowledgement is actually what resets our 4-year RTP update cycle. So what that means is the next RTP will be due by January 14th, 2030. So that's all I have, and I'm going to kick it to Josh Kaczynski for another brief update. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. As a follow-up to the plan itself, we wanted to create an executive summary for those individuals who are interested in what is in the plan, but might not have the time to read all 180 pages or the 800 pages of appendices. So the executive summary takes the form of this interactive website that you can see on your screen. And each page provides a summary and key highlights of what is in the plan. People who are using this can read through the sections in order using the tabs at the bottom, or they can jump directly to a section that they're particularly interested in. Each section also has interactive elements. So folks who are interested in a little bit deeper of a dive can explore those topics in more depth. At the bottom of every chapter page, there's a link to the chapter itself, as well as any relevant appendices. So those folks who really want to dig in can do so. We think it looks best on desktop or laptop, but we have also worked very hard to make it mobile friendly, so it is much more accessible to a wide range of people. Our hope is that this provides a friendlier way to access one of the core work products of the MPO, and that you on the MPC can also share with folks as an example of one of the things that you work on in this committee. I will put a link directly to the executive summary in the chat so you can take a look at it on your time, as well as a link to the MPO website for the Regional Transportation Plan, where you can also find a link to the executive summary. Unless there are any questions on that, I will pass this back to Kelly.
I don't see any questions.
Okay. And I am just going to close by saying that we'll be back at a future meeting to share our post-RTP work plan, including some of the priorities that arose and have continued to arise from our community and from you all, including transportation resiliency, safety, housing, and coordination with your upcoming transportation system plan updates for cities of Springfield and Eugene. Short but sweet today. We didn't quite get you to noon, so hopefully Kayla can be here soon to have the next agenda item. Commissioner Lovell.
Yeah, Kelly, just thank you so much. I mean, like what Rob said when we first had this public comment, that a lot of the stuff we do is paperwork and button pushing and nodding our heads, but you guys make it very interesting and visually stimulating. So good job on that project.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Do we see the ODOT in person yet, Paul?
We do not, Chair. I am sorry to say that we're just too fast for her. However, I suppose it wouldn't be a problem if Vidal is willing to do his other ODOT updates at this point. We could
Let's,
make use to do
let's
that.
check off as much as we can. So
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Paul, too. Yeah, just minor updates, to be honest with you, and thanks for having me on today. Um, I guess where I can start with, I think everyone's fully aware now that we do have our new, or let's just say our interim director in place. Lisa Assumption is her name, and I actually the agency had a good opportunity to sit down and listen to her in her first town hall earlier. And she seems to be someone that's very motivated, very dedicated, and very involved in what the agency is experiencing and what we're kind of going through. And she's trying to really do a good job of trying to help steer the ship. And one of the first updates she did let us know too was that if you remember earlier in the year, last year, we had going through our big budget shortfall. We were able to refine those budget numbers to kind of figure out exactly kind of in the ballpark where we were. And she did let us know that that shortfall is at 242 million at this point in time. And consequently, with that 242 million funding gap, her working with the legislature, working with the governor, working with our executives here at ODOT, trying to figure out the best path on how to deal with that. Obviously, everyone's already aware that the governor is doing things on her end to try to support ODOT or at least support staff and so forth. But on the agency side, we're looking at a three-tiered approach on trying to meet with that shortfall. And that first tier would include about the $70 million in cuts that we have already achieved through, tightening our belts here, doing reductions there and so forth. And then with the available or let's just say vacant positions that we currently have with that 70 million to try to bridge the gap there. And then we're also looking at a second tier approach as well, where it would include both an additional 70 million in reductions on top of what we've already trying to do right now. And that would still require some vacancy layoffs. We're talking about maybe 70 people to lay off on this second tiered approach that was described. And then there's a third tier approach, worst case scenario, as we kind of move through this, that would involve, a cutting about 1,000 positions. And right now, we already have vacant that we're holding, if you will, about 570. So that would involve about 470 current positions that would have to go to layoffs. And so we're looking at it from this three-tiered approach, trying to take best case scenario, no layoffs versus worst case scenario where we would have to have layoffs. Again, things are still kind of in flux. But nevertheless, all we could do was kind of wait and see what the legislature is doing. And I think everyone is aware right now that they are meeting right now. I think they started session about 2 days ago, and hopefully the good folks up there can make the critical decisions that's needed to help keep our budget where it needs to be, such that we don't have to go through any extreme cutoffs, but at the same time be able to deliver on the key areas that our transportation needs in terms of maintenance, snow plow, all the different patchwork that needs to happen, et cetera, et cetera. With that too, I'm going to also say, and I know that Kayla is going to be on the line pretty soon. There is conversations about the CIP going on, and you're going to kind of hear that presentation once Kayla gets online here. And that conversation is going to our act. And again, that is to help identify areas where we think that we could program or at least put in a precondition, if you will, to be able to feed our STIP in terms of which projects that actually go through. And again, it's actually an opportunity so that our local partners here could be involved in that process much early on, both helping to identify projects and moving those forward into the CIP. And then as they kind of develop further, they can possibly move into the STIP. And then the last thing I'm going to mention too, I kind of alluded to it earlier. I didn't realize the meeting was going to go so fast, and that is I have been tasked with taking on a special assignment up in the Portland area. And with that, Ian Roholtz will be filling in behind me or with me, if I can say it that way, as the interim Area 5 manager. My leadership has still asked me to still be involved with this group, as well as the Elaine Act. So essentially, Ian and I will likely be tag teaming this as we move forward. And with that, I am happy to take on any questions, thoughts, suggestions, ideas that this team or this group may have for me.
Commissioner Lovell.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say, Vidal, you are the special forces of ODOT. We will miss you, my friend. So you go do that special assignment in Portland and kick some booty up there, okay?
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you for all you do for us, guy. Appreciate you.
And I'm sure some of you are probably wondering what I'll be doing. I'm going to go help out with the Abernathy bridge structure that's being constructed right now.
That's an important, yeah, that's really an important step. But we're glad you're going up there.
Right.
Paul, go ahead.
Two things, and before I also note that Kayla has just joined us, so we are probably able to move to that soon. But I thought I would add a little bit. Vidal was talking about the budget issue in the legislature, and
Yeah.
Dan and I were just in a statewide meeting yesterday. We heard from one of ODOT's chief finance persons that the legislature or a committee has also been provided with a list of capital projects that are currently already funded and may consider canceling some of those in order to move money into ODOT's operations and maintenance work. I think most of you may know that one of the issues for ODOT's operations and maintenance and overall budget issues is that their money is siloed or restricted in ways that prevent them from moving that money around. So the legislature is looking at apparently a list of about $180 million worth of capital projects that they might decide to cancel and take whatever action they need to be able to free that money up and move it from capital to operations and maintenance. They didn't want to make that list public yesterday, but I heard in the meeting yesterday that there is not a project in our MPO, so hopefully we don't see any cancellations of anything that we're expecting. Also, real quickly on the different front for ODOT's funding, the issues have been around the state funding of ODOT's work. Federal funding has more or less remained steady, and we did hear yesterday a preliminary report from ODOT, which aligned with what I've been hearing, that the work on the next federal transportation bill looks promising in multiple ways. The current transportation bill expires at the end of September, so if Congress decides to reauthorize by then or shortly after then, what we're hearing so far is that we expect all of the existing funding sources to remain in place. We don't know how much money they'll fund those programs with, but we have not heard of any programs being eliminated. And to follow up on something Dan mentioned earlier, we actually are looking at possibly a very large redistribution funding amount coming later this year, which could help not only ODOT, but our MPO, because that funding is shared with us. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I think we are ready to go back to 8B, which is the ODOT Capital Investment Plan.
Yes, and so we have with us, there we go, Kayla has joined us. Thank you, Kayla. And I'm going to turn it over to you. And as you and I discussed, after your presentation and discussion, I will follow up with a little bit more for MPC.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Hi, folks. Kayla Hoatsmans. I'm ODOT Strategic Initiatives Manager. I work in the Policy Data and Analysis Division and have been helping ODOT with the development of its new capital investment plan. It is nice to see some familiar names on here. There are also plenty of names and people that I have not met before, so I'm happy to be here with you today. Let me go ahead and share my screen here, and I'm going to walk through a little bit of what the capital investment plan is. I'm going to guess that some of you on this call have heard about it before, whether that's through your involvement with the Lane Act or other modal committees and things like that ODOT has been working with to develop this. But I know that this is probably a newer topic for some of you. I also tend to be a fast talker, so stop me at any time, ask questions, and interrupt along the way. And if I can get a thumbs up from somebody when they can see my screen. Yes, lots of them. Thank you. Okay. So the capital investment plan, a little bit of background here. So in the spring of 2024, ODOT commissioned a strategic review of the agency that took a look at a lot of things. It was led by several retired state DOT directors from around the country, consultants in the DOT space, and they put together kind of a list of recommendations of things that ODOT can do to help further improve some processes and continue to get its house in order in a lot of different ways. One of the recommendations that came out of that was developing a mid-range capital plan. A lot of the other state DOTs were surprised that ODOT was so heavily dependent on the STIP, the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program, to really serve as our capital finance plan and capital programming document. Really what they were seeing is that we've got, our long-range plans of the Oregon Transportation Plan. Then we have our STIP. We don't have anything to provide that runway and kind of that strategic lead in to those projects, which creates a few problems. And this isn't going to be a secret to anyone, right? Things like scope, schedule, and budget are tough when you're programming a project into the STIP that's at 4% design, 3% design, and you don't fully understand what the project is going to be. And you're also making those commitments for funding dollars 5 years out in advance of when that project is actually going to go to construction. I mean, if you think about projects that were programmed to go to construction in 2021, when we programmed those prior to the pandemic, had some pretty different cost understandings of what the world was going to look like and how things were going to go. So there was a recommendation to kind of build out this runway, add a little bit more strategy and transparency into how projects were picked. This process was then reaffirmed when the legislature commissioned its managerial review during the 2025 session from a couple other DOT experts as well, that yes, this is something that ODOT should be working towards building and being on moving towards. So the capital investment plan is going to be a 10-year rolling investment strategy for the agency. There will be a level of financial constraints to it because we can't include everything and put dollars towards every idea. And then the capital investment plan will be what feeds the STIP moving forward. So in this first iteration of the capital investment plan, the 2027-2030 STIP, which was just released this week for public comment, that's going to be the first 4 years of this first version. So as we talk about building out the capital investment plan, for this first iteration, we're talking about those projects that are at 2031 to 2036, finishing out kind of that look ahead of what might be coming through. So as we're doing this, we're looking at estimating funding out over the next 10 years. This is something we generally already do, but have not done as much for this purpose before. And then we're really trying to put a little bit of rigor around where potential projects or investment ideas are coming from for this. So right now, you can kind of pick any apple from a tree and it may or may not end up in the STIP. And we're trying to put a little bit of discipline around that to where we're having investment ideas come from our asset and our systems data. So think of things like the safety data, bridges, pavements, culverts, those identified safety and data-driven needs. We're pulling ideas from adopted plans and studies. This is one of the places where that interaction with the MPO level is going to be really key as you guys have your transportation system plans as well. And then also our area commissions on transportation are playing a formalized role in the project kind of investment idea generation place. And I'll speak to that more in a second here. From there, think of it as a hopper. We've got ideas coming in. We're going to be screening those through, both from a technical side of, is it meeting the feasibility, the needs of different projects, and then also some policy goals. And I'll speak to that more in a second. But we went through a process to establish policy goals, and does it meet those goals and help drive those outcomes? That list then is going to have a human element to it. We cannot simply, put numbers in and expect perfect project list to come out. We need to ensure that we're, considering certain risks, that we've got a good spread of projects across the entire state so that we're not overly favoring one particular area or type of project over the other, and that we have the right kind of balance of projects. We also have to ensure that we're still meeting all required funding targets. We have certain obligations for federal funding that X goes into fix it, or, from House Bill 2017 that X amount of money is going into bridge. The 1% is going into bike and pet investments, different things like that. So we have to make sure that through all of that screening that we're still hitting all of those targets that we need to, because as much as I wish it was, the capital investment plan unfortunately is not a new source of money. We're still working within the same financial reality that we have. We're just trying to get a lot better at picking projects and having that longer runway and having far more increased accuracy when it comes time to actually be delivering those projects. We'll then be sequencing those out. Like I mentioned, this first kind of bucket here is going to be that stiff timeframe, especially for this first one here, right? We've got already generally kind of know what's in that space there, and then we're building out from there. And where things land in there is really going to depend on how much we already know about the project, what the risk is, things like that. We wanted to leave space in the capital investment plan so that ideas coming in that are slightly more loose, I would say, to begin with, have space to be developed, but that also those projects that are pretty locked and loaded, ready to go, we need to pave between mile point to mile point because pavement condition data tells us we need to. We can launch those out the door in a more expedient manner. So giving some space there to understand that. This does not mean every project is going to take 10 years, but it does mean that we will be looking out that far, look ahead there to see what's in the future, what's coming, how we can develop it, and put a little bit more design and scoping efforts behind it before we really commit to it's going to construction in X date or X dollar amount. With that, and I touched on this a little bit, identifying those investment ideas. So really coming from plans and studies, our asset data management systems, and then those area commissions on transportation list. So the lane acts conversation is next week. Yes? Yes. Okay. Yes. All of the acts are in my brain right now, so I'm trying to keep all 12 of them straight and visually remind myself who's on what day. So the Lane Act will be having this conversation next week. This will be the third or fourth time that we've been talking about the capital investment plan with the Lane Act at this point. We were there in the spring talking about setting goals. We were back in the fall kind of previewing this process that's about to start. And then a conversation that's happening next week will really be around developing these investment ideas. So in terms of projects going into that hopper, we're asking every act around the state to develop a list of about 3 to 5. I suspect most will probably put forward 5 investment ideas of things that they want to have stored and screened to potentially go into the capital investment plan. It's not a guarantee that every single project is going to end up on that capital investment plan list, but it is how we're trying to generate ideas because y'all know the needs in your community better than anybody sitting in Salem can tell you what the needs in your community are. And so we want to make sure that we're really hearing from the local jurisdictions and our community partners as to what those needs are for your area. And have that be a spot of idea generation, something that, maybe those projects are already sitting in your local plans. Maybe we've got the data to support those and really take a look through there. With that then kind of, implementing, as I mentioned this, we're going to be using the capital investment plan to be doing more project development along the way. So trying to work through, any alternative analysis that we have, so appropriate coordination, make sure that we've got the community support behind it, do that initial amount of design work we can before we have to commit to PE phases within a STIP type environment. But also then as we move into the STIP, moving forward, you're going to see a lot more phasing of projects. So you're going to see projects in the STIP that are initially programmed just for preliminary engineering. And then they will be programmed for construction rather than doing everything at once so that, again, we can try to really improve the accuracy and know how much projects are going to cost, how long they're going to take, and what the scope of those projects are. The other thing that we're working on with this is that we really want to make sure that we have appropriate mechanisms in place and standards in place if we're needing to delay or drop projects. And then communicating that back out to the public and to our partners as to why that might happen, rather than projects, continuing to slip year after year or kind of fading off into the abyss, but really having that transparent process there of this is why a project's not moving forward at this time, or this is why a project's not going to move forward at all. Think about things like geotechnical barriers, if there's railroad barriers that prevent something from ever happening, those different issues like that. Then we'll be funding those projects, like I mentioned, phasing those a lot more, and then delivering projects as well. The thing that's not on this slide that I want to add off to this corner here is that there's also going to be some more vigorous kind of reporting out afterwards, doing some annual reports on lessons learned through the process improvements that we need to make. If there's how we're meeting the different goals that we've set for ourselves, things like that. So there's going to be kind of a greater full circle loop of transparency throughout the whole process. That's something that we've been talking to a lot of other states in this design process, and a couple key messages from those other states. One, takes a few years to get this right. I will let you guys know that right now. We're going to do our best to have this first iteration be a successful process. And we know there's going to be a lot of lessons learned and some things we're going to do differently next time. Most of the other states we were working with, Colorado, Washington, Nevada, Arizona, Minnesota, et cetera, Virginia, all said, yeah, about 5 years in, we feel like we've got our feet under us. And we said, okay, well, we hope it doesn't take us that long, but also it might. And we know that we're going to kind of continue to iterate and improve along the way as we go here. But that was one of the main things. But also, they really stressed the importance of having a really high level of transparency through the process of letting folks know how projects are coming in, why they're landing where they are in the process, if they're leaving, and then reporting on that on an annual basis. With that, one thing I've mentioned is kind of this scoring process of looking at projects. And so through that, we took the goals of the Oregon Transportation Plan and we went out in the spring of 2020, late spring of 2025, and had conversations with all of our ACTs and our modal committees. We talked to all of the OTC members, and then we had a joint session, or we had a session with the OTC to kind of talk through all of that feedback. And we had folks kind of rank where they wanted to see importance of our investments. So are we putting the most emphasis on safety? Are we putting the most emphasis on accessibility? And ultimately where they landed with that is that as we're screening projects, we want to see the most weight on safety projects. So 38% of the total weight, if you think of a project, getting 100 points, the most weight will be on safety criteria, followed by stewardship or stated good repair. How is the system holding up? What are we doing to maintain that system? Followed by mobility and accessibility, which we ended up combining. There was quite a bit of confusion as to what counted as a mobility project, what was accessibility. Folks were using those words interchangeably. And so those were combined to 15%, sustainability and climate, and then equity following that. I don't want to underemphasize the sustainability and climate and equity piece of things. As we've been working through scoring criteria, a lot of especially in the sustainability and climate world, those really are living in a lot of other places as well. And then with equity, the discussion there with the commission really was around the fact that if you're doing any transportation project right, equity is a key tenet of that project. And so there's some elements embedded into the process and the project delivery process for that. Digging into that a little bit more so you can see kind of what we're talking about with that. When we're talking about safety, we're talking about, what are those areas that are known hotspots? Where do those projects have crash reduction factors on them? Are there some of those kind of systemic risk factors there? For stewardship, what are the bridge conditions, the pavement conditions, those other kind of asset improvement type elements? Are we looking at travel time reliability, access to transit, bike-ped connections, different things like that, benefits to transportation disadvantaged communities, reducing GHG emissions, and those different things like that. And from that, there'll be data sources and scoring elements from there. Those are still under development right now. We're hoping to have those kind of locked down really within the next about month or so. And then those will be made public. And any project that we're scoring going into the capital investment plan, that score and how it scored and why it scored as it did at that time of entry will be made public. We also likely are going to rescore projects along the way. So as I mentioned at the beginning, you know, some of these projects coming in might still be a little bit vague. Like there might be something that came in from an identified plan or something that knows that we need to do some safety improvements in this area, but we may not know exactly every single element of that project at that time. So we'll score it with what we know at this time. And then we'll be looking at projects again along the way. And I think I maybe saw a hand go up. No. Okay, keep going. With this is simply not just about how we select projects. There's a lot of other elements moving right now in terms of how we improve kind of our whole project delivery life cycle. So how are we estimating our costs for projects? And we've got quite a bit of work going on right now in that cost estimating space and how we're improving those tools to provide a little bit more consistency and accuracy in cost estimating. Our asset management programs, some of them are super well developed in terms of how they are ranking projects and using that data coming in to determine what projects need to happen next in what order. And others of those are not as mature. So we've been working with our asset and program managers on there and kind of connecting those criteria so that we can really make sure that we've got that running list of what are the needs on the system. Those are just a couple of examples. I know Vidal's been involved in a lot of conversations too. There's a lot going on in this space to really help improve the process. So kind of looking forward here, we're here at this point in time of identifying these potential investments, having these conversations. We're going to be screening projects through those criteria over the summer. We'll be releasing that draft capital investment plan list in the fall for full public comment. So similar to how we do public comment on the STIP, we'll be releasing that out. There'll be quite a bit of time where we're collecting comment from folks, having these conversations again with different groups, making them aware that they know that this is an opportunity for them to engage and put feedback in, with then the goal of finalizing the first capital investment plan by the end of the year. With that, you know, all of these kind of other behind the scenes elements are going to continue on as we're improving project delivery and portfolio management things, and then continuing to talk with folks about that. So I will stop there and answer questions, and happy to have a dialogue. And then I know, Mr. Thompson, you were also going to share a little bit further in Vidal about then the connection into the Lane Act meeting next week.
So are there any questions or comments? Could we drop the screen share so I can see?
Yeah.
Paul, do you want to add a little bit of insight? Maybe you tying it together for us will get the conversation going.
I will try and do that, Chair. So the process is specifically having ODOT reach out to the area commissions on transportation. And as Kayla said, and as Vidal mentioned, the Lane Act is meeting next Wednesday, and we'll be discussing having its first discussion around potential priorities for Lane County projects included in the CIP. As it was noted, the Act is being asked to identify the 3 to 5 top priorities and to rank those, I think, and up to 10 additional projects for possible inclusion in the CIP. The MPO is an important member of the Act. I'm your member on the Act. I represent your priorities on the Act, so I'm going to need your input over the next meeting or two on what the priorities are. And the other thing I want to remind people of, it's been a while since we've done this, is that the MPO and the Act have a formal operating agreement where the Act has to respect the MPO priorities in the priority order that the MPO determines. So it's important that I have that information as we go into the Act discussions. I don't expect the ACT discussion next week to make decisions on those priorities. I think it's going to be the first part of the discussion, but by April's ACT meeting, I'll want to have that input from you folks on what the priorities are within the MPO. So that gives us a little bit of time to discuss today, and mostly either in the March and or April MPC meetings, I'm sure I'll be bringing this back to you. I'm going to share my screen here real quick. If I can just get the right window. So in next week's ACT packet, let's see, hopefully you can now see 2 slides from next week's ACT packet. ODOT is sort of seeding the discussion at the ACT by proposing these 4 projects that you see as possible priorities for inclusion in the CIP. There is a preservation project to pave Interstate 5 from the McKenzie River north to the Lane County boundary. That project actually is partially, if not largely, within the MPO area, so that would count as an MPO priority, or at least consideration for the MPO. And then there are 3 safety projects. You can see what they are there. All 3 of those are outside the MPO. I'm pretty sure that milepost 21 on Oregon 126 East is just outside the MPO boundary, so I don't even think it quite falls within our boundary. But again, these projects could be of importance to you and your constituents. So I just want to point out that these are the projects that ODOT is recommending based on their sort of technical and data analysis and the systems they have to look at the state of safety with guardrail projects, or the state of pavement preservation with the I-5 project. These are the projects that ODOT has initially identified as potential priorities. I'll stop sharing that here. I will wrap up by saying that your staff group will start this afternoon, immediately after this meeting, to discuss a possible recommendation of priorities within the MPO area. And that's what I'll be bringing back to you either next month or in April. I know, for instance, that the city of Springfield staff has already forwarded to me their top 3 priorities for our discussion. So your staff group will be looking at this over the next month or 2, and we'll be coming back to you with more.
Go ahead, Vidal.
Yeah, just a little bit of context to it. And, oops, yep, I'm not muted, right? You can hear me, right? Great. Yes, okay, thanks. A little bit of context what Paul just said, and thank you, Paul, for showing them that. I really appreciate that. In terms of context, those projects that's been demonstrated right there are actually from us looking at the data, not just here locally, but statewide. So again, it's not a, hey, we're just looking at Lane County. They're looking at everything statewide, and based on what's happening statewide, these projects come to fall into play, and these were the ones that happen to fall into play here locally. So just a little bit of context around there. It's not like we were not trying to give Lane County projects. Again, this was a statewide view of what's happening and where the needs are.
Yeah, thank you, Vidal. And if I can follow up a little bit more, I appreciate that. Like I said, I think it was important that the ACT have a starting point rather than coming in cold. And so what this is. I'm going to really quickly share my screen again and just sort of illustrate or show you a second set of information that's in the ACT packet for next week. There's an additional 8 maps in the ACT packet that are essentially heat maps showing where ODOT has looked at safety and state of good repair, mobility, access, climate, and equity, and evaluated needs in these 8 locations. They haven't identified these as projects. They aren't proposing that the ACT consider these as projects for inclusion in the CIP, but they are showing where ODOT has been looking at potential needs. So I'm going to really quickly scroll through these 8. You can see this one in Florence, Main Street in Springfield, 99 West in Eugene, 58 in Oak Ridge, 126 through Veneta, and then Beltline, essentially the last section of Beltline that has not been improved. And the last 2 are 126 west of Eugene and 99 West through Junction City. So again, just so we know, and so you're getting the same information that the ACT's going to see next week, those are some initial thoughts about either projects or areas of potential need. And as I said, your staff's going to be working on this, and we'll come back to you in the next month or two with a recommendation and further discussion.
Yeah. So we just have to be patient and get into the lengthy conversation, it sounds like.
Yes.
And they all look like, going through that list of projects, I can see us all nodding, going, oh, yes, those are all things that regionally are super important for us. Does anybody else have any other comments about this item? The only feedback I had about it was just from a financial planning perspective. And this, I think, is one of the challenges in transportation funding is the issues with being able to overestimate or underestimate capital projects. And as you put tools back into place, I know forecasting is a tough thing. It would, being able to get a better sense of to tell the public how much these things are going to cost would be really helpful to everybody, because the public goes through and goes, we'll never get, if we spend money on transportation, we will never get it done because it's always going to cost more than what we expect.
Absolutely. No, I hear that. One thing I didn't mention too that's going to become part of the capital investment plan is that we really are wanting to do a better job of kind of telling the story on the statewide system of what that total need is. And so, historically speaking, every time there's a transportation funding package, we say, here's all the unmet need on the system. And then, that kind of falls away again for the next handful of years, and then it comes back up again. And we're really wanting, the capital investment plan to be this built out list of investments, but have that be accompanied by the, here's what the need really is on the system. So what are we looking at in terms of what are those gaps to be able to, shorten that bridge replacement life cycle timeline and pave more than just interstates, like we're looking at right now with our current financial future, and be able to, where are those gaps through the biped system there, and what do we think it's going to take to help fill those gaps in and have those conversations. So some of those things that you see pop up when we have those funding package conversations, but keep those a little bit more front of mind, have that be part of a more regular cadence of information that we're publishing out as part of, here's kind of our investment strategy for the state. Here's what we really need to be looking at to achieve those goals in the Oregon Transportation Plan. And follow through with these policy directives that we've said are important for the state of Oregon. So I completely hear that. And then also really working to not program those construction phases until we've got more certainty in the design process, so that when we say we're going to do this project for this amount, we're generally doing that project for that amount at that time, and not having this flux of numbers and dates and promises out to the public, because that doesn't serve anybody. And programming construction, when 2% of what the project looks like, is never going to get you the success that you want. It's just not. So
and I think it's how we tell the story to the public right now, right? One of them is understanding that when you plan capital, right, there's never going to be a place that we are going to be to zero. Our backlog's going to be zero. We will have done something wrong at that point, right? Like it's about. And the other piece that I think this is feedback for every jurisdiction, especially around transportation, is we don't do a great job of showing the public the work that does get done, and so it really gets lost. And that is something that, when the public sees, oh, we said we were going to do a thing and it is done, that is naturally a trust building activity, with the public. But I really appreciate you guys beginning to really dig in here and harden the work that ODOT's doing around capital planning and long range planning. This will help a lot.
Absolutely. I thank you. I thank you for that. And we don't do a good job of telling the story of when a project's done. We build a project, we complete an improvement, and then we've moved on to the next thing. And so there's really not even a look back to say, what did we add on to the system this year in terms of how many sidewalks did we infill to create those connections? Where did we improve those lane miles year to year. And then people ask the question and we go digging. And so really having kind of that better inventory on a yearly basis of what we were able to do for the people in and traveling through Oregon is, you know, as important now as it's ever been, but only going to become increasingly more important as we're in the financial picture that we're in. So
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much for your time. I'm double checking the agenda, Paul. I do not think we have any other items.
Chair, you are correct. I believe we are wrapping up.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. We are adjourned.